Hey business besties, welcome back to the Female Founder World podcast. I'm Jasmine, I'm the host of the show and the creator of the Female Founder World universe. Today, I'm chatting with Kim from CurlMix. Kim, tell us what you're building for people who don't know your business.
You are now entering Female Founder World with your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy.
So I have a hair care company that helps you master your curls in 21 days. So if you want your hairstyle to look like this and you have curly, kinky hair, then definitely come to us. We can help get you there in 21 days.
I love the transformation, the time frame that you have just pitched me there, because you immediately get it. You're like, okay, this is not a long-term game. 21 days, I can commit to that. I imagine that probably wasn't maybe the first thing that you came out with, because it sounds like such a succinct story now. Take me to the early days of building your business. You guys started back in 2015. You've been doing this for a while. You've had a couple of iterations.
Yes.
What was the first version of the business, and kind of like where were you in your life that you wanted to start this business?
So technically, it started in 2013 when I was in college. I had to build an app, and I was like, I want to build one for curly hair to educate you on how to do your hair. Mm-hmm. And I built a niche social network. And if you know anything about social networks, building niche social networks do not work. And so I did that for maybe a year or two after college.
Yeah.
And spent a bunch of money on building an app that people didn't really want to use, you know, and realized that they just wanted to use Instagram to showcase their story. But I had a lot of learnings, and I picked up some content making skills, and it just taught me a lot. So I did that from like 2013 to 2015 and probably sunk maybe $25,000 amount of money. But it was a good lesson for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like another little mini business degree, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So then why CurlMix? How did that come about?
So in 2015, CurlMix started as a do-it-yourself box for curly hair. Think Blue Apron, but for hair. Mm-hmm. And I really got the idea because I was making my own hair care products at home. And I was like, man, if someone would send me all these materials to mix it together myself, that would make it so much easier. Yeah. And I actually kind of saw the idea play out on Shark Tank, but for organic cookies. And so it was very funny because I'm like, oh, is anyone doing this like organic cookie Betty Crocker model for hair? I could totally do it for hair. And then we launched in June, and I sold one box to my cousin. And I was like, okay, this is a dumb idea. I should have never done this. And then my husband and co-founder, Tim, he was like, no, you just launched wrong. You know, if Airbnb can relaunch 7 times, surely CurlMix can relaunch twice. And so in September of that year, we relaunched the business. I went to like buzzsumo.com. I looked up the best articles in DIY hair, DIY beauty period. And then I pitched all those writers from different magazines. And then most of them said no, but Refinery 29 picked it up. And this is before they had like 1 million followers on social. So now they're like massive, but they weren't massive yet. Yeah. And they covered the launch, and we ended up doing 100 boxes in that first day. But the problem with the DIY box is that the margins were only 30%. And our customers had started to either unsubscribe, and their boxes were stacking up at home. Mm-hmm. But there was one box they were buying over and over and over again, and it was our flaxseed gel. So the flax seeds that you eat, that you might use as an egg substitute or in a smoothie, when you boil them, you get a really gooey gel. And if you extract the gel, it becomes a really good hair gel to get a great wash and go like this. And a lot of my customers were using this to get wash and goes. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I just need to make this as a ready-made product. So in 2017, I was 7 months pregnant, and I spent all of September and October in my kitchen making 50 different batches of flaxseed gel, seeing what would scale, what would be stable, because manufacturers would not make it for me. I went to 3 of them, and they were all like, no, this is too variable, too difficult to work with. We're not going to do it. And we did pre-orders to our audience for the same price of the box because we had to make it for them, right? And we sold hundreds in a matter of hours.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we should be doing. So we had 6 months of boxes lined up, content, photo shoots already done. We tossed all of it, because we're like, there's no sense in throwing good money after bad.
Because that was all around the idea of the do-it-yourself, build-it-yourself kind of box. And once you realize that wasn't working, you're like, I'm going to cut my losses and pivot.
One of the rules I now have for pivoting is that it needs to be necessity and not novelty. So the DIY box was novelty, but they were still going to buy ready-made products from stores because that's necessity. Yeah. And so, or being like a vitamin versus a painkiller. Yeah. The DIY box, a vitamin. A painkiller, the flaxseed gel, because it's going to help you look beautiful and style your hair. Like, I would have people flagging me down on Michigan Avenue in Chicago in the middle of traffic. What is in your hair? Please tell me what you're using. And so I was like, okay, this is it. That January in 2018, we literally did maybe $3,000 in sales. So it was super low. And I was like, this is so dumb. I should have never done this. And my partner at the time was like, no, Kim, you knew it would be difficult. It's a pivot. Just keep going.
I also love your partner.
That next month we did about $8,000. And then that month after that, I was like, if we could just get back to 16,000, we'd be rocking.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing 30,000 without spending $1 on Facebook ads. And I was like, oh,
amazing.
This is what people want. And so then he came and started working the business, and then we got to our first $1 million in revenue.
Wow. Okay. So this is 2017. Then in 2018, you had a couple of really big milestones. You went on Shark Tank. How did that come about?
So, it's everyone's dream to go on Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
And I remember they were doing a casting call in my neighborhood. And so we took our 6-month-old with us to the casting call because we didn't have anybody to watch him. And there was
My baby comes everywhere. Natalie's standing over there like, yeah, I see your baby everywhere.
Oh my God. Would you believe he started crying during the pitch?
No, of course he did.
I was like, you're quiet this whole time. And now you cry. But they loved our pitch. It was like the one thing I tell people about Shark Tank is that they're in the business of making TV. Shark Tank wins Emmys, okay?
Yeah.
You have to remember that. And so if you want to get on the show, you got to tell a good story.
Yes.
At the end of the
It
day.
always comes back to story.
It always comes back to story. So we ended up getting on Shark Tank, and I had gotten maybe like a $200K convertible note from the former CEO of LinkedIn and his partner because they knew Arlen from Backstage Capital. Arlen Hamilton of Backstage Capital gave me my first $25K in 2017 when we were doing the DIY box.
And you'd mostly bootstrapped up until this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had tons of credit card debt leading up to this point. And I mean, I had to make $1 million before anyone was willing to like really invest.
Yeah.
And Arlen was the only one who gave me money at 25K.
Yeah.
And then we used that to get to our first $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So the rest of it was all personal
Wow.
debt. So I don't recommend that to people.
No.
But we did it. I don't recommend it. I'm okay with betting on myself in that way.
Yeah.
And then we got that investment, and I went out to go raise afterwards. After we had gotten that $1 million in revenue, went on Shark Tank, got the 1.2 million seat round, hit $5 million that year in revenue. And I went to VCs, and they were just all like, we want to see more. We want to see more. And I was like, and this is before the George Floyd movement. This is before all these funds for Black and brown founders existed. And I was like, man, like, what can I do? So I just kind of gave up fundraising for the rest of the year. I was
Honestly, it is difficult. And then you add all of these compounding elements as well. And it's just like, it's really tough out there. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, okay, if VC is not going to be the way that I fund this, consumer businesses are expensive to build. They are expensive, especially if you want to go into retail. And people looking for alternatives, and you found one and nailed it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm a big believer in crowdfunding. If you're a consumer packaged good, you already have customers online, and I mean like a good amount, like at least 20,000.
Yeah.
You know, I believe you can raise your own investment. I don't recommend it if you're like a tech founder, or if, some people do it, you know, but I think your business is much higher risk, and it's not built for crowdfunding, because if your business fails, that's your reputation. You know, for consumer businesses, they make money, you know what I mean, every day. So, or generally speaking.
Yeah.
And so crowdfunding, the regulation changed in 2021 to go from 1 million to 5 million as a regulation crowdfunding limitation. It used to be $1 million and jumped to 5. And I was like, oh, now this makes sense.
Yeah.
And we had to go through a long audit process, you know, gap financials, file with the SEC. It took a while to get ready. It's not just like you just cut on a switch and it's raining money from your crowd.
And when you say crowdfunding, it's equity crowdfunding, right?
Yes.
It's not like Kickstarter. Your community is bought in and they're shareholders in your business.
So, and then the difference is a lot of the investments or a lot of the donations for a Kickstarter or whatever, those values are typically a lot lower.
Yeah.
People are doing like $50 to $100, you know, for investments for equity, via like a WeFunder or a Start Engine or something like that. You're looking at about $700 on average per person.
Okay.
Because they're actually getting shares in the business.
Yeah.
So if there's ever a liquidity event, if you ever sell, you have an IPO, they would either, you know, get their money back or return, or, I mean, they could lose their money hopefully, but, you know, that's obviously not the plan.
Yeah.
And so your customers get to own an actual piece of the brand. It's new and really revolutionary, I think. In the past, you know, everyday investors, if you weren't accredited, you couldn't participate in an Uber investment, an early, you know, first stage investment in Uber. You couldn't participate in a Google. You couldn't participate in a popular product company. You know what I mean? Old Spice, whatever. Like, you couldn't participate in any of these deals. And now you can if they come through a crowdfunding platform. And so more companies are doing it, and it's becoming more legitimate. But I think initially people were scared. And they're like, if you're crowdfunding, it's because you can't raise VC. But the truth is, crowdfunding is better if you want more control of your company and control of your timeline.
Yeah. And also, you talk about like loyalty programs. there is no loyalty program that is better than having your customers as actual bought-in shareholders in this company. They will recommend you to absolutely everyone and never use anything else.
Oh my goodness. Our customers showed up in droves to our Ulta launch. So after Shark Tank,
let's talk about the crowdfunding a little bit more. I don't want to leave that because I just think it's so interesting.
Okay.
So what platform did you use to crowdfund?
WeFunder.com.
Okay. And what's the process? So you go through all of that, all of those steps to, there's like the accreditation, you need to do this properly, cross your T's, dot your I's, all of that. But what was the process in terms of like then communicating that to this community that you'd built? They all love your product. They're already recommending it to their friends. How do you say and explain to them, they might not be investors, that what the opportunity is and how to kind of get involved?
So one of the things that we did that is so simple, but is so easily missed, is a Facebook group of your customers. We literally have kept a Facebook group for our customers since 2015.
Yeah.
Since we started as a do-it-yourself box, because I was getting their feedback about what boxes we should create, right? But so once someone purchases on our website, after they purchase it, says, while you wait for your order, join our free Facebook group with our customers. And we don't admit anyone who's not a customer.
Yeah.
So it's 20,000 people in that Facebook group. We will vote on product launches. We vote on flavors. We vote on, I will go live doing my hair in that group for 2 years in my shower every Wednesday, doing my hair start to finish to show them how to use the product.
Amazing.
It's just crazy. It's crazy when I think about it. I was like, who was that girl? And it built crazy brand equity with our customers. So by the time it came to crowdfunding, like they already trusted me as a founder. Yeah. Because they had seen my face so many times before. It wasn't like she was just showing up to ask for money, you know?
Yes.
And so then when I showed up with the opportunity of owning it, it was really impactful because typically in our community, and I mean like the curly hair community, we see acquisitions all the time. It's one of the fastest spaces and fastest growing spaces in hair care, period. And so you've seen the $1 billion Shea Moisture acquisition. You've seen the multi-$100 million Mayel acquisition. You've seen the Curlsmith acquisition. There's so many in the curly hair space. But the thing is, the customers never get to participate. And so they're always worried, are the products going to change? You know, the people who are buying us don't care about us. I was like, well, we can change that now. You guys can own a piece of the business. So if there is ever a liquidity event, you get to participate. Yeah. And I felt like that was revolutionary, and I really wanted to do that for my customers. So I just explained that, going live in the Facebook group, making content on social, traditional email marketing, like Obama's campaign. He had one of the largest campaigns that had single dollar donations because it was done through plain text email. And he had a little donate button at the bottom of every email. And so I used that strategy as well. And then, of course, SMS.
And plain text email basically means instead of these like beautifully designed like EDMs, you're sending out like the same way you email a friend.
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Something that I listen to, as I'm listening to your story, that I like constantly hear is this, like you solidifying your story and showing up over and over and over as like a really forward-facing founder in your business. This is a superpower that founder-led brands have, particularly I think like women-led, founder-led brands who are creating products that they use as well, that the big conglomerates just can't do, and they're trying to do, but they just can't. I want to understand how you think about that and like the role that leaning into that has played in the business.
You know, I have learned that it's a plus and a minus, right? The minus is I'm kind of irreplaceable, and I need maybe 10 people to really replace what the value I add to the business. The plus to that is that's where a lot of our growth has come from. A lot of our success, our notoriety is because I can be the speaker. I can help run ads. I can help do email marketing. I can help go live and sell. I can also, like, you know what I mean? These are things that, you know, typically if you're not good at it, you'll just outsource it or you just won't get done. But then maybe the business grows slower, or then maybe you're not as successful. Maybe you run out of money sooner. And so it's two sides of the same coin, I would say. But I don't wish it was the other way. I've learned a lot from this experience, and it's just made me a better CEO and a better spokesperson for the business.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've raised this crowdfunding round, which was what did you raise in 2019?
In 2021, it was 2021, we raised $4.5 million.
Okay. So 4.5 million raised in 2021. You'd already been on Shark Tank. Take me to 2022 and some of the big milestones you hit that year.
So that was the year we did $10 million.
Amazing.
And it was down to the last day.
D2C, right?
It was all D2C. It was no retail. And we stayed out of retail strategically. After Shark Tank, they were all calling. Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Target, Ulta. Ulta had asked us to come in for a few years in a row. But I knew that our packaging wasn't ready.
Yeah,
our messaging wasn't
how
ready.
Do you say no to Ulta? That's like a dream for so many brands.
Because I had an advisor who told me, one, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
So she knew the ins and outs of my current business.
Yeah.
Two, my packaging was not done well. The packaging that we were using on Shark Tank was the packaging I designed several years ago.
Wow.
Which, it sounds cute, but like when the name Pure is bigger than the actual brand name on the packaging, it's like people would think that the brand name is Pure and it's not. The brand name was CurlMix.
Right.
And so the messaging is the most important when you go into retail because people have to make a 3-second decision on whether or not to buy your product. And if your packaging is not ready, then you're ultimately going to suffer. And so going into retail, while it will be exciting, you'll eventually get delisted because you're not moving fast enough through the shelf. And so all of our 10 million in 2022 was all online. And yeah, that was the focus there. So, and what that really meant was, and mind you, we have a manufacturing facility as well. I didn't tell you that, but
okay,
we have a 30,000 square foot facility. And so in 2022.
And you do it yourself in-house or you're working with? Amazing.
Yes. So we have large kettles or we make 200 gallon, 300 gallon batches of conditioner and shampoo. And that's a whole other story of how we've been building another, these are multiple businesses.
It is. It's literally like you've got the e-commerce business and then you have this manufacturing business as well. They're different things. And then you layer in retail and it's like 3 different completely separate work streams that you have to build expertise in. But we can talk about that separately in a second because I do want to stay on what we were talking about the Ulta deal and how that came about and what you learned.
Gotcha. So what I learned about the Ulta deal, so we launched an Ulta in 2023, so the following year. But in 2022, we rebranded. Yeah. So that was when we were like, okay, how are our customers using the hair products? Well, we tell them to do their hair in the shower. He's like, yeah, but you have these pump tops that when you drop them, they break. So should they do this in the shower? I was like, well, it has to be done in the shower. Okay, the packaging needs to change. Yeah. Something that can slip and drop and it's not going to burst the cap or squeeze out of the bottle. So then we moved to tubes. Tubes are really easy. Our customer's more mature. She's over 50. It's hard for her to work with those pumps and then twist the cap off when it's time to get the last of the product in the bottle and all these things. She has so many complaints. Yeah. We're like, oh, tubes. Tubes are much better. She'll be able to squeeze every last drop out of the tube. Let's do that. And then we, master your curls in 21 days. You're right. That was not the original messaging. The original messaging was like handmade beauty or like simple beauty rituals. And it just wasn't specific. Yes. And I remember reading Alex Hormozy's book, $100 million Offer. And I realized that you have to give people an offer that sounds so good, they feel stupid saying no. Yeah. So if I told you I'm going to help you master your curls in 21 days for free, you're like, oh, sign me up. You know what I mean? And so that's what we transition our messaging to. And in doing that, that needs to be on the bottles. Yeah. Right? Which means when you change the label, it not only needs to have the brand name, it needs to read the exact way you want the influencer to read it off the package on YouTube when they do a review. And so we built the packaging with that in mind. Or when they lay it flat and take a picture of it, it needs to sit face up instead of being a bottle that rolls all around the floor. You know what I mean? Because if you're a digital first brand, it has to be digital first in how you do the packaging as well. And then we thought about, okay, well, there's 4 steps. It goes in the box. How big should the box be? What about when we add different merch? So there was a lot of investment in the rebranding and the packaging and elevating the brand.
I think it's so smart to think about how do you, if you're planning on doing influencers or building on social, like how do you make sure that the thing that person receives is going to be something they can then clearly communicate and share in exactly the way you want them to, and having that selling point right there on the bottle, being able to photograph it really easily, like all of this stuff really, really matters. So interesting. Okay, keep going. This is such a good story.
No worries. And so the packaging need to change, the messaging need to change. Yep. And this really came from reading lots of books. I also read Positioning by Jack Trout. Yeah. Classic marketing book, but it just talks about how you need to own a word in your consumer's mind. And, when you just say we're a natural hair care company, well, there are thousands of those, and that none of us stand out. What position do I want to have? And for us, it was the wash and go. Yeah. Because the flaxseed gel is what they were using to get the style. So let's dive all the way into the wash and go. So instead of a 4-step system to help you do, I don't know, braids or locks or whatever, we focus on a 4-step system to help you master your wash and go. So it's a wash and go 4-step system instead of like a curly hair 4-step system or a lock 4-step system or, you know, just general hair care. And then we kept there is some transition though, because we had lots of different holds and colors. So it's like, how do we transition those over? In hindsight, I probably would have just landed with one kit, but we ended up doing all the holds. So light, medium, heavy, ultra. So that's a lesson there. It's like, if I could have, that was the opportunity to condense. Yeah. And we didn't take it. We just kind of like kept the same number of SKUs and everything. That would be some feedback if you're looking to, hey, rebrand your business, try to get down to as few SKUs as possible, especially if you're in CPG.
Yeah. And that is for the clarity of the communication to the customer and your costs, or what's the reason behind that?
Both. Yeah, because it's like, well, what hold should I use? Versus just being like, this is the one that everyone
totally
uses.
This is the product. Yeah.
And then one of the things that we recently learned too is that we probably should leave with a product that works, that's easy for people to do on the first time. The wash and go takes like 3 times to master it, which is why we say 21 days. Yeah. But deep conditioners, they work regardless. So I was like, we probably should have led with that. And then, but we're learning different things as we go. We also got the buy-in from our community. So our Facebook group, we were letting them vote on different colors and packaging and ideas and messaging and what resonated with them. So they'd be more, we could bring them along the journey in the rebrand so we wouldn't lose everybody when we actually launched. And so once we did this rebrand, now I was ready to have conversations with Ulta. And they were like, okay, wonderful. You can come in January, top of 2023 for the big meeting. And they had about 10 people in this meeting. It was really amazing. And they were so excited about but I'm saying were because that's when we had the meeting. Yeah. But they were so excited about the brand. They're like, we finally get to marry CurlMix. She's like, Kim, are you proposing? I'm like, I'm proposing. Okay. And then Ulta's been an incredible partner for us, truly. They have ads running right now for Black History Month for CurlMix. I didn't know. I just found out they're on someone else's podcast.
Oh, wow.
I was like, my friend just told me last night, I heard you on. I was like, you so did? Cool. We're having wine. I was like, I haven't heard this ad. But, we're on display tables and Ulta as well. And they've just been an incredible partner with terms and just so many different things. I'm super excited to be in Ulta. And I'm so glad that we waited to make them our first retail partner instead of trying to spray and pray like a lot of early brands do. Yeah. It's very hard to go into retail when no one knows you and to grow up because it's your responsibility to sell through that product. Yeah. And if you don't have any brand recognition or name recognition, it's not going to move. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we hear again and again and again from people on the podcast and founders in the community as well about, it's not, you can't just necessarily rely on the retailer to sell your brand. Like once you're in there, you're also responsible for bringing people to that retailer. It's not just their customers that are buying, and it's this like relationship. And that if you go in too early and you don't sell through, like you miss your shot with them a lot of the time. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the retail stuff. Going into those big retailers seems like, I think it just seems so intimidating. I know that sometimes it can be a very expensive exercise, and I want to know like if there were any costs that surprised you as you were going into this about like I was actually speaking with a founder last night, and she was telling me about how she was in this massive grocery chain in Australia for years, and she also worked as a like in distribution and stuff for a long time. And she was like, we ended up moving out of them because we kept getting, they add on marketing costs to you sometimes. They can put that on you. And it's not just the straight margin a lot of the time. It's kind of like they're going to have chargebacks and all of these things that you need to be aware of going into it so that you're like properly budgeting and that your margin is really strong so that when you launch into retail, it's still like a profitable thing. What are some of those things that you think people need to be aware of? The biggest thing that I think, like I knew about the chargebacks.
Yes.
I have a friend.
And for people who don't know what are chargebacks.
There's like if your product isn't selling through and within the time frame that they expected, they can just charge you back for the inventory that didn't sell. So if you thought you had a $100,000 contract, well, if they refund you for $30,000 of it and say, hey, you now owe us $30,000. Really, it was $70,000. Yeah. But you've probably already paid your team. You've bought an inventory. You probably don't have the $30,000 that you would owe. So that's one thing. And I knew about, there are all these other charges, damages, things like, so if we have mousses that sell in the store, but some of them lose their top in transit. And so that becomes a damage fee that we didn't have to pay for as the brand. And then there are the damages. There are returns. Sometimes people return your product. There are different promos that brands will have too. Like there's a double points program, I think, at Ulta. You know what I mean? There's also different, was it gorgeous hair event? All those like discounts you see in the store, 30% off or buy two, get one free at Sally's. Like those are all promos that the brands are typically being charged for.
Yeah.
I will say Ulta has an emerging beauty division that offers a lot of this stuff for free to new brands.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So for the first year, Ulta has not been charging me for these things, and I'm so grateful for. And that's common for many other founders. So they've put us on social. They've also done emails on our behalf and inserts, and they've really been helping to promote and move the brand. So I've been very, very grateful. They've been an incredible partner. And I can say that from some other founders that I know as well.
Yeah. Which
is one of the reasons I'm not going into all these other retailers just yet.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that they would be as friendly for me coming into the store.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And mind you, I think it's two sides of that, right? I waited till we were doing 10 million in annual revenue to go into Ulta. So I already had a couple 100,000 customers before going into the store. So I'm also bringing them new customers as well. I don't think that my customer typically shops in the Ulta, so she's now going into the Ulta end cap to buy CurlMix. And so I think it's twofold. You have to have leverage when you go into retail. And that's the thing that most people don't realize is you get better deals with leverage.
That's such a smart takeaway. And then this year, 2024, you are crowdfunding again.
Yes.
Why did you make the decision to do it again? How is it different this time? And what are some of the learnings that you've taken from your last experience to do differently or do the same that for people who want to crowdfund in 2024, they should know?
You mentioned that CPG businesses are expensive and they're cash intensive.
Yes.
So if we want to do more retail in the future, then we would need more money to do that, right? And then we also have our own manufacturing facility. But I really want to scale other lines of business within CurlMix. So our color waxes, our deep conditioner flights, things like that. And I want to get to a larger number of revenue online. But in order to spend more on ads, I need a bigger amount in the bank so that I'm not being so risky with the business, right? So I also want to get to profitability. That's a big one for me as well. And so I was like, I prefer crowdfunding to VC money because of control and because of speed.
Yeah.
I know sometimes people think, well, crowdfunding can take a long time. VC money can take a long time too. A lot of founders don't get their checks for 6 months to a year from when they actually start the process with the VC. And that's not a knock on anyone. It's just that's typically what I've heard. And I didn't know that was standard. I thought it was like 3 months, And so I was wrong with my assumption. For crowdfunding, it's kind of the same thing, but it's more so how much you're gonna put in the work, right? I think even with VC, you could put in all the work for diligence and all this other stuff and still not get the check. And crowdfunding you're gonna get as much as you work for. So if you think you're just gonna cut it in one and the money's gonna rain in, that's not gonna happen. You gotta make content, you gotta get in front of your customers, you gotta call people, you gotta do webinars, it's like a politician. They raise money for their campaigns. So that means you're shaking hands and kissing babies. So what does that mean online? That means you're going live every day. That means you're responding to every single comment because every single comment could be $250 of an investment into your business.
Yeah.
So that means I am addicted to Instagram and Facebook for the next 60 days
Wow.
to
And
close my crowd.
is that the what's the time frame of a crowdfunding campaign?
Legally, you have a year to raise, but I'm closing mine after 60 days. So we're about 30 days in. We'll close it at the end of March.
Okay. And how much are you hoping to raise, or how much have you raised?
Minimum $2 million. I've raised about $900,000 so far. A minimum $2 million is what I'm hoping for.
So you're nearly halfway there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I would love to raise $5 million.
Yeah.
$5 million is the maximum if you're doing regulation crowdfunding.
Okay. Amazing. And the last thing I want to ask you is for a resource recommendation. This could be a couple of things. It doesn't have to be one, but something that's been helping you as you've been building CurlMix that you think other people should check out. You've given us so many good books so far. So I'm definitely going to link all of those in the show notes. But is there anything else that you think people should take a look at?
Yeah. One of the things that I did maybe 2-ish years ago, we started recording Facebook spend, Google spend, our marketing efficiency ratio, ROAS, literally an email growth every single day for the last 2 years in an Excel sheet. And then doing a summary of every month and then a summary of all channels.
Is this automated?
It's manual. And I think everyone wants to automate this, but the thing is, there's no good software that pulls in all of this information. And if it is, it's usually Zapier. So you still have to do some kind of zapping and setting it up. But my team mainly pulls it because it is literally the lifeline of the business. Like it'll tell you the heart rate of the business. You know what I mean? If you're going to be profitable this month, if you're not, and like you're spending money every single day as a digital brand, you need to know its efficiency every single day. So I wish I would have done that sooner, but we've been doing it for the last 2.5 years. And then any investment money you want to get from a VC, they're going to be so impressed when you pull out this document of a year of trailing 365 days of data. And they can go back and say, well, what was happening when, the Grammys came on? How did that affect your ads? Or what was happening in the summer? Does your business have seasonality? Like they can go back and just look at this super detailed sheet.
Amazing.
Thank you. So I would say that. And then let me think. I've been reading this book, I think it's called Straight Talk, Cash. It basically just talks about how to run a profitable business. Because as you know, many companies are now focusing on profit. Before it was just about growth at the expense of profit. And now profit is the main conversation. So I'm trying to get there in the next 12 months.
Amazing. Kim, this has been so cool to hear about how you're building CurlMix. Thank you so much for coming on Female Founder World.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Quick shout out to all of our Business Bestie subscribers. If you are loving this show and you are building a consumer, CPG, or e-commerce business, or you're about to build one, this membership will give you access to the people, experiences, and the tools that you really need to build your dream business. Head to femalefounderworld.com/subscriber for more.